My Hero Ultra Rumble has recently had its next character leak. Tamaki of the Big Three. There's going to be no shortage of videos from the more devoted Ultra Rumble channels going over that, so I won't waste your time there. But there's an entire list compiled from the game's files of characters that have had some data put in, and no one's made a video on it yet. And since Ultra Rumble has replaced Dragon Ball The Breakers as my go-to multiplayer experience, I'm gonna make that video. More specifically, I'm gonna be going over all of the data mined characters and quirk sets. All of this was gotten from the My Hero Ultra Rumble database, link to that down below. As I go through the list, I'll give my guesses on how they'll play if I have any, and mention what class I think they'll belong to. Just as a reminder though, this is how the characters seem to actually be classified. Strike characters are the powerhouse movesets, rapid characters specialize in keeping constant pressure on an enemy, tactical characters have strong mix-up options, and are usually dangerous at multiple ranges. Support characters offer indirect combat benefits like sniping, making walls, or reflecting projectiles, and assault characters control the flow of battle to carefully pick their fights. Now, let's get into the list proper. Spoiler alerts for who may very well end up in this game. First up is Hero Killer Stain. This list is ordered by who had the most completed work on them in the game's files at the end of Season 10. So, the exact order of these characters being added isn't certain, and there's nothing stopping them from replacing anyone with a different choice. But I can easily see Stain being the pick for Season 13. Given a new season comes out every, 2-ish months, this would be just in time for Halloween. Stain is definitely a strong choice for that, and he has the most data in the game at the end of Season 10 after Tamaki. His special action will almost certainly be the ability to paralyze the last enemy he's attacked. It might also limit it to where only certain attacks will allow him to actually paralyze them. Stain will certainly be a strike character, with fast, long-range moves that have really bad end lag to them. The next three are Mineta, Jiro, and Tokoyami. Mineta will probably be a support character, with his quirk allowing him to trap opponents while also making trampolines for himself, and presumably his teammates. Jiro will probably be tactical, since her heartbeat pulses can be used in both short and long range, but probably won't be as strong as present Mike's. I'm also pretty sure that her special action will be putting her earphone jacks into the ground to listen to enemies move, marking them if they're too close. Tokoyami, I have no idea. Dark Shadow is a very flexible power for an adaptation in a game like this, and you could probably make a moveset for any of the 5 classes for him. The next 3 are Midnight, Mina, and Mei Hatsume. Mei falls into the same open-ended camp as Tokoyami, so I won't waste time there, but I'm more confident with how Midnight and Mina will play. Midnight will be an assault character. Her whip can easily mimic Deku's Black Whip, and she'll be able to make a cloud of her knockout gas to hinder the opponent's offensive capabilities, be it through limiting their mobility or crippling their reload speed. On top of that, her fans would give her ranged attacks, which can then carry the effects of that knockout gas with them. As for Mina, I imagine her being a rapid character, with the ability to speed around on her acid and unleash wave after wave of her dissolvents. I can see her acid actually slowly depleting GP over time on hit, similar to how burning works on HP. Though, if that's too busted, they could also make it so if you're covered in acid, your GP specifically will deplete faster on hit. The next 2 are Gentle and, shockingly, La Brava. Yeah, they're gonna be separate characters this time, unlike the previous fighting game. Gentle will probably focus on making the elastic air to knock opponents away and easily move himself around, making him a good choice for a technical character. But I cannot for the life of me imagine how La Brava will play. I mean, she'll certainly be in the support class, that's her gimmick, but beyond buffing her teammates with her quirk, I'm not sure how a character whose sole other talent is hacking would translate into a game like this. Mirko, aka Rumi, is next, and I'm assuming she's going to be based on her initial appearance. The game seems to go for the more iconic versions of the characters, and it'll make it easier to design costumes for her. A slower but more controlled version of Ida in terms of kicks, with a few grapple moves thrown in. Mirko also has enhanced hearing in the series proper thanks to her rabbit quirk, so I could see her special action being shared with Jiro. The last 2 characters on the list are Sero and Hood. Sero will probably be a rapid character with the ability to jump in and out of fights with ease. More of a Sue rapid than an Ochako or Ida. And for Hood, I'm gonna go with either support or tactical. His ability to fly is more in line with a tactical class, while the stretching arms akin to Mr. Fantastic would give him the sniping options I associate with support characters. I imagine his special action will be a self-revive like Dabi has. No clue what Sarah would be given. Now, there are actually another 12 characters in the game's files. A few of these left out characters include Gran Torino, Night Eye, Muscular, Gang Orca, Fat Gum, Rappa, and Tetsu Tetsu. However, none of these characters are coming to the game. Probably. Alright, so here's the thing. Monoma had nearly 10,000 lines of asset registry done for him during Season 10, the season just before he was added. Next season's Takamaki had roughly 2,000 lines of code at the same time. Stain, Mineta, Jiro, and Tokoyami had over 1,000 lines back then. Seto and Hood, the two characters at the bottom of that list, had 110 each. But the other 12 characters? 21 lines, and nothing else. But hey, if you need more proof, here are the two final characters from that leftover camp. The first is Nomu, specifically the USJ one. In a game where voice lines are gacha pools, a character who can't speak just seems like a poor business decision. And then there's Fused Overhaul, the final boss of One's Justice 2, which was turned into a simple costume in Ultra Rumble. Yeah, I'm standing by it, those other 12 characters are just leftovers from One's Justice 2, which Ultra Rumble was built upon. There are other details that were data mined at the same time, but most of them aren't anything too special. One is for the Domination game mode, which just got leaked properly, so we'll learn more about that soon enough. And there's a few icons here and there, but they don't seem to actually mean anything important. But the other big deal is that there are 15 Quirk sets referenced in those files. 2 of them are from Mirio and Endeavor, who, again, have been leaked recently and are on the way. The other 13 are for Cementos, Ida, Momo, Sue, Aizawa, Overhaul, All For One, Mount Lady, Ibarra, Mr. Compress, Twice, Hawks, and Present Mike. I would give possible classes for them, but I couldn't come up with anything with any level of confidence. Yes, all of these Quirk sets are given names in the files, but those names are prone to change, and they're not as helpful as you'd want them to be. For example, Ochako's Quirk set that was introduced in Season 10 is called Spacewalk in the game's files. Does that name in any way draw to mind a ballerina super slugger from hell that moveset turns her into? Or All Might's new moveset that got added this season is just called Detroit in the files? What comes to mind with that title? The fight with the USJ Nomu that his moveset is based on, or the time he changed the weather with a single punch? So, what does this indicate for Ultra Rumble moving forward? Well, we have 12 characters and 13 Quirk slots left. This means one of two things. If every character is just for one season, which has been the standard for a few seasons now, then it means we're only about halfway through the game's lifespan, but after Season 12, which is next season, there'll only be one more season with 2 Quirk sets and an additional character. After that, it'll have to scale down to 1 character and 1 Quirk set a season. Alternatively, we could see the return of some seasons getting 2 characters and just 1 Quirk set, like we saw back in Season 7. But I can only think of 2 situations where they would double up on characters for a season. First, La Brava and Gentle Criminal will almost certainly share a season. They're a package deal anyway, so if they're going to be playable separately, I can't imagine they'd be that way for too long. Second, I think Tokoyami will be a end-of-season addition. There's just a lot of UA students that have roughly the same level of work put into them, and I think Mineta, Jiro, and Mina would be stronger pulls to get players back at the start of a new season than Birdman. Sorry, Tokoyami. But no matter how many seasons end up with more than 1 new character, there are not enough Quirk sets left to give every season 3 new gameplay additions for its remaining lifespan. If they're going to maintain that, they're going to need to add some that we do not find in the data mines. And personally, the only one of the upcoming characters that I could see getting a second Quirk set is Mina. She can have one based on how her acid increases her mobility to attack at mid-range, and have one that focuses on the long-range capability of her acid, such as being able to create a focused water hose of acid that we saw during her training, or pulling a Left 4 Dead 2 and throwing a ball of acid that turns into a pool of acid that deals damage over time. Now, turning our attention back to the characters already in the roster, I don't think there's anyone left that would really be appropriate for a Quirk set that doesn't already have one. But I can see Izuku being the one character to get a 3rd Quirk set, a rapid one making use of more of his late-game abilities. But regardless of my speculation, this shows that Ultra Rumble has at least another year or so of content in the works. But would I be happy with the roster if the data mine holds true? If that's the case, My Hero Ultra Rumble will end up with 43 playable characters, not counting Quirk sets. And as a fan of My Hero Academia, I'm happy to say that this roster does an amazing job representing the heroes. The villains will naturally struggle with raw numbers, since we didn't get that many different groups in the series beyond Overhaul. Here's hoping we get a My Hero Year 2 one day following the sister class. Kendo could work as an MC, right? But even with that caveat, there are two fairly important villains missing from Ultra Rumble's roster. The first is Lady Nagant. She falls into the same category of Stain, being an extreme anti-hero that fills the antagonist role for a story arc. Her quirk also specifically makes her a sniper, something that is seldom found in Ultra Rumble beyond Ibarra. And thanks to her having a second quirk that lets her walk on air, she can have the combat positioning skills that are normally reserved for characters like Nejire. The other villain missing is Spinner. I know he might seem redundant since you could just give Stain a rapid quirk set, but I think that role would be better suited for the Lizard Man. After all, Spinner's main gimmick is the ability to climb any surface. Ultra Rumble is probably the only video game in My Hero where that will actually be useful. So imagine, for his special action, Spinner puts his sword in his mouth and moves quickly on all fours. From scaling walls quickly to scurrying around the map to sneaking up on an enemy fighting by the riverside, this would low-key be really fun. Now, while I think the hero side is much more well represented, that doesn't mean literally everyone I want in is actually playable. I'll limit my wish list of this section just to 5 to keep things going. First, for a final 1A class member, I choose Ojiro. This is simply because I like close-range combatants, and he's a pretty straightforward character. Yararashi, how do you say whatever, Gale Force. He would be my second choice, as he's the one character whose exclusion from this game compared to the fighting game that preceded it is really baffling to me. I mean, in a game with an emphasis on air mobility, he can control the wind, more or less. The next two are from Class 1B, Komori and Setsuna. Komori is the Mushroom Girl, and her quirk is shockingly versatile, as many of the simple ones tend to be. From making mushroom platforms to leaving poison mushroom landmines, she's definitely one of the most dynamic minor characters the game could add. On the other hand, Setsuna's quirk at first glance doesn't seem like such a great fit. It just allows her to remove body parts and make them float and operate as she wishes. But this opens her up to combat options at all ranges, being able to send flying punches, roundhouse kicks, headbutts, basically anything you can think of, while still allowing her main body, or whatever's left of it during those attacks, to move away. This sounds to me like a good choice for a tactical character. Her potential special action is what I would find the most interesting. Imagine her being able to detach her hands to either grab an item at a distance without having to leave cover, or detaching her hands so that way they could open a chest or rescue a civilian, while Setsuna hides in a safe spot. If they wanted to be extra toxic, and it's Ultra Rumble, so you know they do, Setsuna's special action could even grab anything that they drop and automatically bring it back to her after they rescue the civilian or open the chest. Really, the only downside would probably be that you can't engage in other actions like healing while this happens. Hey, she got into the course based on recommendations. And for the final character I would add, I'm gonna go with a joke choice of Bubble Girl, simply because I'm curious about how that would manifest. Okay, this video is starting to get off topic. If you want my general ideas for characters in this game, let me know in the comments and I'll make follow-ups if there's interest. Otherwise, which characters are you most interested in? For me, it's Hero Killer Stain, Mina, Gentle, Labrava, and Mirako. Do you think Ultra Rumble will stay alive long enough for all these characters to get added? Will it try to stick to 3 characters per season? Or is it about to slow down as the final season of the anime and the fighting game All's Justice releases? And, the most important question of all, will they actually acknowledge that Jiro knows more than 3 people?